I left my phone at Madison's house to trick Life 360 so I could go to my first real party, but someone spiked the punch, and I woke up in the hospital, pregnant with no memory, until I discovered my perfect boyfriend. Jack had been drugging girls at parties for years, and his rich parents tried to bury me with lawsuits, but I got 3 other victims to come forward, and we exposed everything until his family had to leave town. My parents weren't like abusive or anything, but they were super overprotective. I'm talking Life 360 tracking my every move, supervised dates only, and absolutely no being alone with boys ever. Literally medieval torture for a teenage girl. The final straw came after this huge fight about my boyfriend Jack. We'd been dating for 4 months, and my parents still made us sit in the living room with them whenever he came over. They wouldn't even let us go to the movies without my mom sitting 3 rows behind us. I'd asked if Jack could take me to homecoming, and they said yes, but only if my dad drove us there and picked us up. No after party, no dinner, nothing. I was texting with my best friend Madison at school about how unfair it was, and she was like, just tell them you're sleeping over at my place Saturday. My parents are going out of town. Her older sister was supposed to watch her, but she was super cool about everything, so I decided to do it. The phone tracking was the biggest obstacle. My parents checked that app like their lives depended on it. But if I left my phone at Madison's, they'd see exactly what they expected to see. Me at a sleepover, safe and sound, while I was actually at the party Jack had been talking about for weeks. I spent days perfecting my cover story, packed my bag with all the right props like homework and comfy clothes. Underneath it all was the outfit I'd been hiding in my gym locker. Nothing fancy, just a black dress that made me feel pretty. Saturday came and my mom dropped me off at Madison's at 6 p.m. She actually walked me to the door and talked to Madison for like 5 minutes about our study plans. I wanted to die from embarrassment. Madison played it so cool though, showing my mom the snacks she'd prepared and everything. The second my mom's car turned the corner, I changed into my dress. Madison did my makeup way better than I could ever do it myself. She let me borrow these heels that made me look way older. I felt amazing. I left my phone on Madison's bed, making sure the volume was up so she could answer if my parents called. Jack picked me up at 7:30 and I felt so free. No parents watching us, no tracking app, just me and my boyfriend going to an actual party like normal teenagers. The party was at this guy Brandon's house. His parents were away for the weekend and the place was packed. Jack introduced me to his friends from his old school and everyone was super nice. There was music blasting and people dancing, and I finally felt like I was having a real high school experience. In the kitchen, red cups lined the counter. Jack handed me one filled with this pink punch that smelled like strawberries and something else I couldn't identify. It went down easy, too easy, masking whatever else was mixed in. I finished it faster than I should have, nerves making me thirsty. 20 minutes later, the edges of the room started to blur. My body felt heavy but also disconnected, like I was floating above myself. When I tried to tell Jack something was wrong, the words came out slurred and strange. He noticed immediately, his face shifting from happy to terrified. The bathroom seemed miles away even though he practically carried me there. My legs had stopped cooperating entirely. Some girl burst in, took one look at me, and started yelling about calling for help. Everything after that came in fragments. Jack lifted me outside where the air hit like ice water. Voices argued about hospitals and parents. Someone mentioned Brandon's older brother had dumped something extra in the punch as entertainment. My body wasn't mine anymore, consciousness flickering like a dying light bulb. Jack was panicking, trying to figure out what to do. He couldn't take me to the hospital because they'd call my parents. This girl who claimed she was studying medicine took charge. She made the call I was too scared to make, staying calm while explaining symptoms to the dispatcher. Jack held on to me like I might disappear, whispering apologies I could barely process. The paramedics arrived and immediately started asking questions. What did I drink? How much? What time? All stuff I could barely answer. They loaded me into the ambulance and Jack tried to come with me, but they wouldn't let him. At the hospital, they pumped my stomach and gave me fluids. A nurse had to call my parents since I was a minor. I'll never forget hearing my mom's voice in the hallway, half screaming, half crying. When she burst into the room, I expected pure anger. Instead, she grabbed me and just held me, sobbing. My dad stood in the doorway, his face completely white. They'd been calling Madison's house for an hour after finding out from Life 360 that my phone hadn't moved all night. Madison finally cracked and told them everything. The doctor said I was lucky. Whatever was in that punch could have been fatal if I'd had more. The police got involved and Brandon's brother got arrested. 3 other kids from the party ended up in the hospital too. I was alone a month later when I got the call. It was the hospital. The doctor asked if I was sexually active. I told the truth and said no. He was quiet for so long I thought he hung up. We think you might be pregnant. My heart dropped. I dropped the phone, hands shaking, as the doctor's words echoed in my mind. Pregnant from a night I couldn't remember. My mother's voice drifted up from downstairs, asking who was on the phone. I couldn't breathe. My legs gave out and I sank onto my bed, staring at nothing. My phone buzzed. Jack texted asking about our movie plans tonight. The normal message felt sinister now, making my skin crawl. Someone at that party had done this to me while I was unconscious. The realization hit like ice water. My attacker was someone I knew. I stumbled to my bedroom door and locked it, then barely made it to my trash can before vomiting. My hands shook as I texted Jack back that I was sick and couldn't see him tonight. My mind raced through every face at that party, every person who'd been there when everything went black. Madison called within minutes. Jack had already texted her, worried because I'd canceled so suddenly. For the first time since the party, I lied to my best friend. I told her it was just food poisoning, nothing serious. The lie tasted bitter. I sat on my bed staring at the Life 360 app on my phone. The same tracking app that had failed to protect me that night now trapped me. My parents would see if I went anywhere, but I needed to get a pregnancy test to confirm what the hospital said. The irony made me want to scream. My mom knocked on my door, her knocks growing more persistent. I wiped my face and steadied my voice before answering. She wanted to know about the phone call. I claimed it was the hospital calling about a follow-up appointment while frantically Googling on my laptop what to do if you were assaulted but didn't remember. I started screenshotting everything from that night. Jack's texts from the party, him promising to watch my drink to keep me safe. My fingers froze when I saw Madison's Instagram story. Brandon's brother was out on bail. The man who'd spiked the punch was free. Opening a new document on my laptop, I titled it Everyone at the Party and began listing names. I needed to figure out who'd been there, who had access to me when I was unconscious. Jack's name started calling my phone repeatedly, interrupting my concentration. I texted back that I had food poisoning, hoping he'd leave me alone. His response made my blood run cold. He was already on his way over with soup because he was worried about me. That That persistence that once seemed sweet now felt suffocating. At dinner, I pushed food around my plate while my parents talked. My dad mentioned something that made me look up. Brandon's brother's lawyer was claiming multiple people were affected that night, but wouldn't give details for privacy reasons. I wasn't alone. There were others. That night, sleep wouldn't come. I scrolled through Instagram, looking for any photos or videos from the party. Brandon's story highlights still had content from that night. My heart stopped when I found it. A video showing me unconscious on a couch. Several guys stood nearby, including Jack. Their faces became suspects in my mind. My phone lit up with another text from Jack. He was outside my house at midnight saying he knew I was awake because my bedroom light was on. He wasn't leaving until we talked. I had no choice but to face him. I crept downstairs, avoiding the creaky step third from the bottom. The backyard felt safer than letting him inside. Jack immediately grabbed my hands when I met him by the garden, asking why I'd been acting weird. His touch made my skin crawl in a way it never had before. Back in my room later, I couldn't stop thinking about his hands on mine. I went through our old text conversations, looking for signs I'd missed. Then I found it. A text from party night I didn't remember sending. Feeling better, Jack's taking care of me. It was sent an hour after I'd blacked out. Someone had used my phone. The next few days became a nightmare of Jack appearing everywhere. At the pharmacy when I went with my mom. At the grocery store. Always with that concerned boyfriend act that made everyone think he was so sweet and caring. No one saw what I was beginning to see. My shifts at the frozen yogurt shop became unbearable. Mike, Jack's friend, started coming in daily. He'd order the same thing and ask weird questions about how I was feeling lately, if I was taking any new medications. The questions felt like surveillance. I tried reaching out for help in the only way I could think of. During a meeting with Ms. De Peterson, the school counselor, I asked vague questions about trauma and memory loss. She brushed off my concerns, mentioning how Jack volunteered at her church youth group. Such a good Christian boy, she said. My stomach turned. Desperate for answers, I created a fake Instagram account. While someone clearly studied the How to Make Every Bad Decision Possible handbook, leaving your phone behind for Life 360 is like leaving breadcrumbs for worried parents while you skip into danger wearing borrowed heels and trust. I started messaging other girls from the party, asking if they remembered anything strange from that night. Most didn't respond. The ones who did claimed they didn't remember much. Then Sarah messaged back. The pre-med student had been mostly sober that night. She remembered seeing Jack carry me upstairs, but she'd assumed he was just helping me lie down somewhere quiet. My heart pounded. Jack had lied about never leaving my side downstairs. My mom mentioned over breakfast that Jack's mom had called her. She was concerned about our relationship, worried that I might be depressed and pushing Jack away. He was involving our parents now, painting me as unstable before I could even process what had happened to me. I spent hours comparing timestamps from the party videos with that feeling better text. There was a 40-minute gap where I wasn't visible in any photos or videos. 40 minutes unaccounted for. 40 minutes where anything could have happened. Emma, Brandon's girlfriend, sent me a private message saying she needed to talk, but only in person. She was scared because Jack had been asking everyone about me. We agreed to meet at the mall where my parents could track my location, keeping up appearances of normalcy. Emma's hands shook as she told me what she'd seen. Jack had been upstairs for at least 30 minutes. She'd gone looking for Brandon and saw Jack coming out of a bedroom, adjusting his shirt. She'd thought nothing of it at the time, but now. Our conversation was cut short when Jack appeared at the mall. It couldn't be a coincidence. Emma's entire demeanor changed instantly. She backtracked, saying she must have been confused about the timing. Maybe it wasn't even Jack she'd seen. Fear radiated from her as she made excuses to leave. That night, Madison called me on FaceTime. Through tears, she admitted that Jack had been asking her to keep tabs on me. He wanted to know if I was taking any new medications, if I'd been acting differently lately. She'd thought he was just being a caring boyfriend, but something in his intensity had started to frighten her. The pieces were falling into place, forming a picture I didn't want to see. But I needed more than suspicions and fragmented memories. I needed proof of what Jack had done to me that night, and I was running out of time. The pregnancy decision loomed over everything, a ticking clock I couldn't ignore. I started documenting everything, every text, every interaction, every witness account. If the system had failed to protect me, maybe I could protect myself. Maybe I could find justice on my own terms. The girl who'd snuck out to her first real party was gone. In her place was someone harder, someone who refused to be a victim twice. Jack started spreading rumors about me being crazy and paranoid after the party. He told people I was traumatized and imagining things. The whispers followed me through the hallways at school. People who used to smile at me now looked away awkwardly. He'd positioned himself as the concerned boyfriend dealing with his unstable girlfriend, and everyone bought it. I recognized the manipulation pattern from my AP psychology class. Gaslighting, isolation, reputation destruction. The textbook examples suddenly felt personal. I started documenting everything in my phone's notes app, creating timestamps for every interaction, every strange occurrence. The evidence file grew daily. Tyler sent me a DM on Instagram at 2 a.m. The message was simple but devastating. He apologized for what Jack did. My hands trembled as I typed back, asking what he meant. Within minutes, he claimed his account was hacked. The message disappeared, but I'd already taken a screenshot. Someone knew something. During chemistry lab, my partner Aisha mentioned something that made my blood freeze. Jack had asked her to keep an eye on me and report any strange behavior. She thought it was sweet that he cared so much. I forced myself to smile and continue the experiment while my mind raced. He was recruiting people to watch me. I printed all my screenshots and evidence that evening. The stack of papers felt heavier than it should have. I hid everything in my old American Girl doll box in the closet, the one place Jack would never think to look. He had my phone password, something I'd given him months ago when everything felt innocent. The detective working Brandon's brother's case agreed to meet with me. I sat across from him in the police station, explaining my suspicions. He listened politely, but his expression said everything. Without concrete evidence, they couldn't investigate based on feelings. Besides, he mentioned casually, Jack's dad golfed with the chief. The system wasn't going to help me. Emma texted asking to meet again. This time she suggested the Target bathroom, somewhere Jack wouldn't think to look. She arrived looking terrified, constantly checking over her shoulder. She admitted she was scared of Jack too. She'd seen him threaten Brandon when Brandon questioned why Jack was so interested in who remembered what from the party. The intimidation wasn't just aimed at me. My research led me down a disturbing path. Jack's ex-girlfriend Melissa had moved schools suddenly last year after a party at his house. Old Twitter threads mentioned something happening, but the details were vague. I found Melissa's best friend's Instagram and sent her a message. The response came days later. Melissa had experienced something bad with Jack, but her parents made her sign something something to not talk about it. The friend wouldn't give details, but suggested I be careful. The pattern was becoming clearer. I wasn't the first. I decided to confront Jack calmly about the upstairs timeline. We sat in his car after school. When I mentioned the 40-minute gap, his entire demeanor shifted. Tears started flowing as he talked about how hurt he was that I didn't trust him. He made himself the victim so convincingly that for a moment, I almost believed I was wrong. Madison, who was supposed to back me up, took his side. She said I was being paranoid and needed to appreciate having such a devoted boyfriend. The hospital called with a harsh reminder of reality. I needed to make decisions about the pregnancy soon. They gave me a 2-week deadline. The urgency made everything more desperate. Time was running out to find the truth. Brandon mentioned something casually during English class that changed everything. He thanked me for helping clean up after the party, then looked confused when I said I didn't remember helping. He explained that Jack had told him I'd helped carry supplies inside hours before guests arrived, but Jack had told me he'd only arrived right before I did. The lies were stacking up. At the basketball game that Friday, I watched Jack interact with his family. When someone mentioned Brandon's brother's arrest, Jack visibly flinched. His mom quickly changed the subject, her hand on his shoulder in a protective gesture. They knew something. Jack approached me after the game with an offer that made my skin crawl. He would support me through the pregnancy if I just stopped being paranoid and trusted him again. The way he said it, so casual and confident, told me everything. He knew about the pregnancy before I'd told anyone. He knew because he was responsible. My cousin from Brandon's school reached out after hearing rumors. She revealed something that made my stomach turn. 3 different girls had left parties early feeling sick when Jack was there. They'd all assumed it was just too much drinking, but now she wondered. The pattern expanded beyond just me and Melissa. I went through my jewelry box looking for my grandmother's earrings to wear for comfort. Instead, I found her necklace that I thought I'd lost at the party. It was perfectly clean, not like it would be if it had been on a dirty floor all night. Someone had cleaned it and returned it. Someone who had access to my things while I was unconscious. The revelation shifted my perspective. Jack's control only extended to our immediate friend group. I started building connections with people outside his influence. Students from other schools, people who didn't know his reputation as the perfect boyfriend. Tyler found me in the Wendy's parking lot after school. He was sober now, clear-eyed in a way he hadn't been at the party. He admitted seeing Jack alone by the punch bowl when I got my second drink. Jack had been acting suspicious, looking around nervously. Tyler had been too hammered to think much of it then, but now it seemed significant. Aisha chose to help me despite Jack threatening to ruin her college recommendations. She said some things mattered more than Princeton. Her integrity gave me hope that truth could overcome reputation. My mom started noticing things too. When Jack showed up during our mother-daughter lunch, claiming to be worried about my state of mind, she saw through the act, the way he inserted himself into our private time, the subtle, controlling behavior. She began asking questions I wasn't ready to answer yet. I maintained a facade of normalcy while methodically gathering evidence. Every interaction with Jack became an opportunity to learn more. During a tense conversation in his car, he made a mistake. He mentioned details about my outfit being on the floor, details he couldn't know if he'd stayed downstairs like he claimed. I kept my expression neutral while my mind cataloged another piece of evidence. Emma made a discovery that changed everything. She'd borrowed Jack's car to move some stuff and found a receipt in the glove compartment. It was from a pharmacy near Brandon's house, dated the afternoon of the party. The items were paid in cash, but the timestamp proved Jack had been preparing something. Mike started distancing himself from Jack after witnessing a violent outburst. Jack had lost control when Mike questioned the party timeline in front of others. The mask was slipping, and people were starting to notice. Something's not adding up here. Why would Jack keep that pharmacy receipt in his car where anyone could find it? His whole plan seems way too careful for him to make such a basic mistake with evidence that could link him to whatever he bought that day. One by one, people began recognizing the inconsistencies in Jack's story. He told different versions to different people, and those versions were starting to conflict. Sarah mentioned he'd told her he never left the downstairs area, but Emma had heard him say he'd briefly gone upstairs to use the bathroom. Tyler was told Jack had been outside getting fresh air during the time I was unaccounted for. The lies required too much maintenance. My dad's attorney friend agreed to meet with us after my mom shared her concerns. He couldn't do much officially, but he offered guidance on documenting everything properly. He explained how to create admissible evidence, how to establish patterns of behavior. The legal system might not be interested yet, but building a case was still important. I confronted Jack with the pharmacy receipt. He smoothly claimed he was buying supplies for Brandon, just being helpful. But when I texted Brandon to confirm, Brandon said Jack wasn't supposed to bring anything to the party. Another lie exposed. Madison came to my house in tears. She apologized for not believing me, for taking Jack's side. She admitted he'd been pressuring her to spy on me, to report back about my behavior and conversations. The way he'd manipulated her made her realize she'd been wrong about him. My best friend was back, and I wasn't alone anymore. Jack's options were narrowing as his support system crumbled. Emma, Tyler, and now Madison refused to support his version of events. At school, people whispered about the contradictions in his stories. The golden boy image was tarnishing. Brandon himself became an unexpected ally. He revealed that Jack had insisted on helping with the punch even though Brandon hadn't asked him to. Jack had seemed weirdly focused on it, asking multiple times about the recipe and who would be drinking it. At the time, Brandon thought Jack was just being helpful. Now it seemed calculated. I made sure Sarah and the other girls who were drugged that night knew the truth without pressuring them to come forward publicly. Some weren't ready to process what might have happened to them. I understood that feeling intimately, but they deserved to know they weren't alone, that someone else was fighting for answers. My AP psychology teacher noticed my research on manipulation tactics. She pulled me aside after class, offering resources and mentioning she was a mandated reporter if I needed to talk. The offer hung in the air between us, heavy with possibility. Jack's attempts to convince people I was having a mental breakdown failed spectacularly. My calm documentation contrasted sharply with his increasingly erratic behavior. When he tried to paint me as unstable, people saw a girl methodically gathering evidence. When he claimed I was paranoid, they saw him following me around town. The basketball team captain intervened when he saw Jack corner me aggressively in the parking lot. Jack's threatening demeanor, the way he grabbed my arm, the angry whispers. It was all witnessed by someone with social influence. The captain later told others about what he'd seen, adding another crack to Jack's perfect image. Word spread through whisper networks as girls shared their uncomfortable experiences with Jack at various parties over the years. Stories that had been dismissed as misunderstandings or too much alcohol suddenly formed a pattern. The community of victims grew larger than I'd imagined. imagined. Emma made another discovery that sent chills down my spine. While looking for her calculator that Jack had borrowed, she found unmarked pills in his backpack. She took photos before carefully putting everything back exactly as she'd found it. We couldn't use the evidence legally, but we knew what it meant. The pregnancy decision deadline approached relentlessly. I realized I needed resolution before making any choice about my future. The idea of carrying my attacker's child while he walked free was unbearable, but the thought of making such a huge decision without closure felt impossible too. Jack's parents hired a lawyer and started threatening defamation suits against anyone spreading rumors. The letters arrived at several students' homes, including Emma's and Tyler's. The legal intimidation revealed their complicity. They knew what their son was capable of and chose to protect him instead of his victims. I understood with crystal clarity that justice might only come through social consequences. The legal system had failed me completely. The police weren't interested. The school administration wanted to avoid scandal, and now Jack's family was using their wealth to silence witnesses. But truth has a way of spreading despite attempts to suppress it. Instead of making public accusations that could lead to legal trouble, I strategically shared evidence with key people who drew their own conclusions. The photo of the receipt, the testimonies about Jack's contradictory stories, the pattern of girls leaving parties sick. I let the evidence speak for itself. The school removed Jack from his leadership positions after multiple girls filed complaints about feeling unsafe around him. The complaints were carefully worded to avoid defamation while expressing genuine safety concerns. The administration couldn't ignore the volume of concerns, even if they wanted to. Through patient documentation and witness cultivation, the truth became undeniable to everyone who mattered in our community. Jack's reputation crumbled not through dramatic accusations, but through the slow accumulation of facts that couldn't be explained away. Jack faced social ostracization at school, as even his closest friends couldn't ignore the mounting evidence. The lunch table that had once centered around him slowly emptied. His teammates started making excuses to avoid hanging out. The social consequences were swift and thorough. He made one last attempt to manipulate me by threatening sewer slide if I didn't recant. But I was ready this time. I recorded the conversation on my phone, capturing his emotional manipulation in his own words. The threat felt hollow, designed to trigger guilt rather than express genuine distress. I shared the recording with the school counselor, who initiated mandatory intervention. Jack's manipulation tactics were finally documented by someone in authority. The counselor's report created an official record of his concerning behavior, even if it wouldn't lead to criminal charges. Jack's parents pulled him from school, claiming he needed mental health treatment, but everyone knew the real reason. They were avoiding further social consequences, protecting their son from the community judgment he'd earned. The privilege of wealth allowed them to reframe predation as mental illness. My support network solidified as even previously skeptical friends acknowledged the red flags they'd missed about Jack. People apologized for not believing me initially, for buying into his perfect boyfriend act. The community learning experience felt bittersweet, validation mixed with frustration that it took so much evidence to be believed. Melissa reached out directly through a mutual friend. She shared her own assault story, confirming what I'd suspected. Jack had done this before. She offered to support me however she could, though her parents' legal agreement limited what she could say publicly. Still, knowing I wasn't alone meant everything. Armed with testimony from multiple victims and witnesses, I worked with other girls to present everything to the school board. We demanded policy changes, better oversight at school events, mandatory consent education, and protocols for handling assault allegations. The institutional pressure came not from one voice, but from many. Jack's mother confronted me at the grocery store, her voice loud enough for other shoppers to hear. She admitted knowing her son had problems with boundaries, but blamed girls for tempting him. The public admission, witnessed by several people, revealed the family's toxic enabling. Her words were recorded by at least 2 bystanders on their phones. The school counselor documented Jack's pattern of concerning behavior in an official report. The documentation created a paper trail that couldn't be dismissed, even if criminal charges remained unlikely. I compiled all evidence into a comprehensive folder shared with trusted adults and victim advocates. My parents, Madison's parents, and several others committed to supporting me regardless of what I decided about the pregnancy. The network of support felt stronger than any tracking app could ever be. Then Jack returned to school early from his supposed treatment. He carried a lawyer's letter threatening anyone who continued what they called harassment. The legal threats intimidated some witnesses into silence. Jack's family's wealth created a chilling effect on public discussion. Madison wavered about testifying at the upcoming school board meeting after Jack's lawyer contacted her parents. The pressure mounted as more families received threatening letters. I found myself isolated from some allies by legal intimidation, forced to decide whether to continue fighting or protect myself. I chose to move forward with the school board presentation. The decision meant Jack's family would retaliate, but fear couldn't win. Not after everything. Their retaliation came swiftly. Jack's family filed an actual defamation lawsuit against me, escalating beyond social consequences to legal warfare. The lawsuit aimed to silence me through financial pressure and public humiliation, but the lawsuit backfired spectacularly. My lawyer subpoenaed Jack's phone records and social media during discovery. The legal weapon he'd tried to use against me turned into my greatest tool for exposing the truth. During depositions, Jack's lies unraveled under oath. Multiple witnesses contradicted his version of events despite the intimidation attempts. Emma testified about finding him upstairs. Discovery phase turning into Jack's personal horror movie. His parents really thought threatening everyone with lawsuits would work, but now their golden boy has to answer questions under oath where lying means jail time. Tyler confirmed seeing him near the punch bowl. Sarah described carrying me unconscious. Each testimony chipped away at his fabricated story. Jack's lawyer made a critical mistake during one deposition. He accidentally revealed this wasn't the first time they'd handled such situations for the family. The slip confirmed what Melissa's friend had hinted at, a pattern of covering up Jack's behavior. Tyler's older brother, who worked at the liquor store, provided unexpected evidence. He identified Jack as a frequent buyer of alcohol despite being underage. The testimony established a pattern of illegal behavior that supported our claims about the party. I faced a choice when Jack's lawyer offered a settlement: accept money and sign an NDA, or pursue the case knowing it would consume my senior year. The decision felt impossible. Silence in exchange for moving on, or justice at the cost of reliving trauma publicly. I refused the settlement. The choice meant facing depositions, court dates, and public scrutiny. But silence had protected Jack for too long. Other victims deserved to see someone fight back. My decision empowered empowered others to come forward. 3 more girls shared their experiences with Jack at various parties. The pattern Jack's lawyers had tried to dismiss became undeniable. Each new testimony strengthened our case. Jack attempted one last manipulation. He approached me at school despite a restraining order, trying to intimidate me into dropping the case. But security cameras he didn't know existed captured everything. The footage showed him grabbing my arm, whispering threats, ignoring my attempts to leave. The witness tampering charge changed everything. Combined with the mounting evidence from discovery, Jack's legal position crumbled. His final desperate claim, that I'd seduced him and regretted it, fell apart when timeline evidence proved I was unconscious during the assault. The judge reviewed all evidence during a preliminary hearing. She noted the overwhelming testimony supporting my claims, the pattern of behavior, the attempted witness intimidation. Her ruling came down with devastating clarity. She dismissed the defamation case with prejudice. Jack couldn't refile. The judgment included a scathing commentary about using wealth to silence victims. The courtroom filled with quiet sobs from other girls who'd found courage in the verdict. Jack's family withdrew him from school permanently within days. They quietly moved to another state, fleeing the social consequences and potential criminal charges. The community exile felt more satisfying than any jail sentence could have. The school board implemented every policy change we'd demanded. New party safety protocols, mandatory consent education, better oversight at events. The institutional changes meant future students would have protections we'd lacked. With Jack on and the legal battle over, I finally had space to make my choice about the pregnancy. My family and friends surrounded me with support, never pressuring either direction. For the first time since that party, I had complete control over my body and future. I made my decision with clarity and peace. The choice was mine alone, supported but not influenced by others. The agency I'd lost that night was finally restored. The school invited me to speak at graduation about resilience and survival. I stood at the podium looking out at faces I'd known for years. Melissa sat in the audience, having driven hours to support me. Other survivors were scattered throughout the crowd. My speech focused on community responsibility and believing survivors. I talked about the systems that fail us and the strength we find in each other. The standing ovation felt like collective acknowledgement of truths too long ignored. Summer passed in a blur of preparation for college. I'd received a victim advocacy scholarship, turning trauma into purpose. The money meant freedom to pursue education without my parents' financial control. I spent those months rebuilding relationships that Jack had tried to destroy. Madison and I grew closer than ever. Our friendship forged stronger through trial. My parents loosened their grip, recognizing that their overprotection hadn't prevented harm. Tyler got sober and became an advocate for consent education. He spoke at freshman orientations about the responsibility of bystanders. His transformation from enabler to ally gave me hope for broader change. Emma started a support group for assault survivors at school. The meetings provided safe space for processing trauma without judgment. The community of survivors grew stronger than any individual voice. Sarah pursued her pre-med dreams with new purpose. She specialized in treating assault victims, understanding firsthand how medical professionals could make a difference. Her career choice honored our shared experience. The ripple effects continued beyond our immediate circle. Other schools in the district adopted our safety protocols. Parents had difficult conversations with their children about consent and accountability. The culture shift happened slowly but steadily. I packed for college with mixed emotions. Leaving meant distance from the community that had ultimately supported me, but it also meant freedom from the place where trauma lived in every corner. My parents drove me to campus in silence. The Life 360 app stayed off, a small but significant change. They'd learned that tracking couldn't replace trust and communication. The dorm room felt like a fresh start. No one knew my story unless I chose to share it. The anonymity felt both liberating and isolating. I could be anyone, but I'd always be the girl who survived. Classes began with the usual awkwardness of meeting new people. When asked about my hometown, I gave vague answers. The past felt too heavy for small talk with strangers, but purpose found me quickly. The Campus Advocacy Center needed volunteers. My experience, painful as it was, could help others navigate similar trauma. I signed up immediately. Training sessions taught me proper support techniques. I learned to separate my trauma from others' experiences. The professional distance felt necessary for sustainable advocacy work. My first shift answering the crisis hotline came sooner than expected. The voice on the other end sounded young, scared, familiar in its confusion. I guided her through immediate safety steps, connected her with resources, stayed on the line until help arrived. After the call ended, I sat in the quiet office processing what had just happened. I'd transformed from victim to advocate, from silenced to empowered. The evolution felt profound. 6 months into college, I received an unexpected message. A girl from my hometown reached out. She'd heard my graduation speech and found courage to report her own assault. She wanted to thank me for showing her she wasn't alone. I stared at the message for a long time. The impact of speaking truth rippled further than I'd imagined. Each person who found their voice created possibility for others. My relationships at college developed slowly but genuinely. Trust came harder now, but the friendships I built had depth born from honesty. I learned to navigate intimacy with patience and clear boundaries. The advocacy work became central to my identity. I chose a major in social work with a focus on trauma counseling. The career path felt like destiny born from disaster. Sometimes memories ambushed me. A red cup at a party, the smell of strawberry punch, a crowded room with loud music. The triggers remained, but their power diminished with time and therapy. I thought about Jack occasionally, not with fear or anger, but with a strange detachment. He'd lost everything through his own actions. The consequences fit the crime, even if the legal system never formally convicted him. My story became one of many in the larger narrative of survival and justice. Not unique in its pain, but significant in its outcome. We'd created change through collective action when individual voices went unheard. The scholarship ceremony at year's end brought unexpected closure. They announced my name for academic excellence and advocacy impact. The recognition felt earned through perseverance rather than victimhood. Standing on stage accepting the award, I thought about the girl who'd snuck out to her first party. She'd wanted freedom so desperately. The irony wasn't lost. I'd found it, just not how I'd expected. The audience included other survivors who'd become advocates. We'd transformed a community of victims into a force for change. The network we'd built protected others in ways we hadn't been protected. My parents attended the ceremony, pride evident in their faces. Our relationship had evolved from control to mutual respect. They'd learned to support without suffocating, trust without tracking. After the ceremony, Melissa found me in the crowd. We embraced without words, understanding passing between us. She'd started law school, planning to prosecute sexual assault cases. Another life redirected toward justice. The summer internship at a RP crisis center challenged me daily. Each survivor's story echoed familiar themes while remaining uniquely their own. I learned to hold space for their pain without drowning in it. My supervisor noted my unusual ability to connect with young survivors. The shared experience, though never explicitly stated, created immediate trust. My trauma had become a bridge to helping others. The second year of college brought new challenges and growth. I started dating cautiously, learning to trust again. The process was slow, marked by setbacks and small victories. One night at a party, I saw a girl who looked too hammered being led upstairs. Without hesitation, I intervened. The confrontation was brief but effective. The girl went home safely with friends. Afterward, I stood outside processing what had happened. I'd prevented someone else's worst night. The full circle moment felt profound, from victim to protector. The Advocacy Center expanded its programs based on our recommendations. Peer support groups, educational workshops, policy reform initiatives. The infrastructure for change grew stronger each semester. I spoke at high schools about consent and bystander intervention. The faces looking back at me held the same innocence I'd once had. If my story prevented even one assault, the public vulnerability was worth it. My senior thesis focused on institutional failures in addressing sexual assault. The research was personal, but academically rigorous. The committee praised its insight and practical applications. Job offers came from various advocacy organizations. Each represented a different path toward the same goal, supporting survivors and preventing future assaults. The choices felt abundant and meaningful. I accepted a position at a nonprofit serving young assault survivors. The work would be challenging but purposeful. My trajectory from victim to advocate was complete. Graduation day arrived with bittersweet emotions. College had been both healing and challenging. I'd found my voice, my purpose, my power. The girl who'd been silenced had become someone who spoke for others. My family gathered for celebration. The pride in their faces reflected journey rather than destination. We'd all grown through the trauma, found strength in survival. Madison flew in for the ceremony. Our friendship had survived distance and change. She was pursuing journalism, focusing on investigative reporting of institutional failures. Another life redirected toward justice. The graduation speech I gave focused on resilience and transformation. I spoke to fellow survivors in the audience, acknowledging their strength. The message was clear. Trauma didn't define us, but our response to it could change the world. Walking across the stage to receive my diploma, I thought about everyone who'd been part of this journey, the allies who'd believed me, the survivors who'd found courage, the community that had ultimately chosen justice over comfort. The future stretched ahead, full of possibility and purpose. I would spend it ensuring no girl faced what I did alone. The system had failed me, but I refused to fail others. My story wasn't unique. Too many shared similar experiences, but the outcome was rare. We'd found justice through community action. We'd created change through collective voice. We'd transformed trauma into purpose. The girl who'd snuck out seeking freedom had found it in the most unexpected way, not through defying parents or tracking apps, but through finding her voice and using it to protect others. The freedom I'd craved at 16 looked different at 22, but it was mine, earned through survival and strength. That nonprofit job is going to get one tough cookie who knows exactly what these kids are going through. Life 360 couldn't protect her from everything, but now she's the protection others need. Subscribe for more stories just like this.